For thousands of years, the battle between the hero and the demon lord has raged on, a cycle continuing to this very day. In the current era, humanity dispatched 4 of its strongest warriors, deemed powerful enough to finally defeat the demon lord. Yuga, the chosen hero, led the party, carrying the full confidence of his comrades that you would vanquish evil. However, upon breaching the castle, the 4 were intercepted by our protagonist, Ioki, a subordinate of the demon lord, yet stronger than anyone they had ever faced. Staring down his adversaries, Ioki couldn't help but mock their weakness, declaring that if they couldn't even defeat him, they stood no chance of reaching the demon lord. The party's mage immediately launched an attack, but Ioki effortlessly nullified her spell. Growing bored with the so-called heroes party and their pathetic display, he engaged them in battle. Even when the hero, Yuga, unleashed his ultimate power-enhanced technique, Ioki's own skills proved far more overwhelming. A wave of darkness repelled the entire heroes party. Having shown mercy, Ioki spared their lives, leaving them a path to retreat. While checking on their condition, he was suddenly captivated by the beauty of the female cleric, his mind becoming so entranced that he failed to notice his own underlings appearing behind him. When they asked if they should finish off the foolish intruders, he refused.
At a loss for words, he ordered them to just throw the group back where they came from, suggesting a nearby village would suffice. With a heavy heart, Ioki bid a silent farewell to the girl he had taken a liking to. A month later, the scene repeats. During that time, the hero's party had relentlessly challenged Ioki, yet never once claimed victory, leading the demon lord to look down on them. The demon lord's right-hand man, completely oblivious to Ioki's true power, concluded that the hero's party being defeated 13 consecutive times was simply proof of how useless modern heroes were. The demon lord questioned Ioki on why he hadn't killed them, to which Ioki feigned disinterest, claiming they were mere small fry not worth dirtying his hands over. Hearing this, his master ordered that next time Ioki's own subordinates should handle them. Knowing full well they were no match for the hero, Ioki had no choice but to agree to eliminate the party himself. Despite being a demon, he cared deeply for his comrades. The only reason he could so easily defeat the hero was because he was cheat-level strong. In his estimation, Ioki believed his challengers were actually powerful enough to defeat the demon lord. Furthermore, he feared that if he continued to toy with them, the world would inevitably fall into the demon lord's grasp, an outcome he did not desire. Therefore, the next battle would be their last. The following day, the hero's party arrived for another challenge. The 2 swordsmen charged forward, but the power gap was immense as Ioki emerged unscathed, effortlessly tossing them into a wall. The female mage's spells were equally useless. All their tricks were meaningless against such an overwhelmingly powerful foe. Watching the girl he admired, Cecilia, desperately trying to heal her 2 fallen comrades, Ioki let out a loud laugh, mocking their weakness and declaring that the outcome would remain the same no matter how many times they fought. Cecilia once again cast a strengthening spell on Yuga, who poured all of his remaining power into a decisive blow. Yet Ioki was still unharmed. He asked if they hadn't realized by now that they were simply not in his league. Driven by his desire to defeat the demon lord, Yuga refused to give up. Seeing this determination, Ioki offered them a chance. Leave the female cleric behind, and the other 3 could proceed to challenge the demon lord or do as they pleased. Yuga initially refused, but the female mage urged him to accept the deal. She knew they were getting nowhere, and pointed out that their opponent had spared their lives many times. She argued that saving the world was far more important than a single cleric. As harsh as her words sounded, the person in question accepted the sacrifice. Cecilia bravely told them to go on, assuring them she would be all right. Yuga reluctantly agreed, promising to return for her immediately after defeating the demon lord. True to his word, Ioki allowed the 3 to pass, telling them to get it over with and kill the demon lord, while he himself stayed behind to woo the girl, a truly audacious move. The blue-haired cleric Cecilia asked why he had kept her there, and Ioki, too flustered to confess his love directly, remained silent. Though she knew she was no match for him, she still attempted to fight back, believing him to be evil. He didn't retaliate, only asking for a chance to talk before introducing himself. When Cecilia expressed her fear that he would kill her, he reasoned that if that had been his intention, he would have done so during their very first encounter. He then finally confessed his feelings, telling her he had fallen in love at first sight and asked her to go out with him. Shocked, she ultimately rejected him with a simple apology. The rejection hit Ioki hard, and he collapsed in despair. Feeling a pang of pity, she asked if he was all right. She almost attacked him again, suspecting it was an act, but held back when she sensed a profound sadness about him. Ioki confessed that he had lost the will to live. He explained that he rarely left his post except when ordered to attack human villages, a task he secretly despised. Cecilia countered that all demons were evil, pointing out the demon lord's goal of destroying humanity. It was then that Ioki revealed his secret. While he was a demon, he was actually a reincarnated person from another world and still possessed human emotions. Surprised, Cecilia pointed out that with his immense power, he could have defeated the demon lord himself. He admitted that was true, but explained that doing so would force him to become the next demon lord, a lazy type who would much rather hide in his room all day than deal with such responsibility. His life had been monotonous and empty, he said, until she appeared. He had fallen so deeply in love that he even drew her portrait to gaze at after their battles. For the first time since his reincarnation, Ioki felt truly alive. Hearing his story, Cecilia began to understand. She implored him to use his overwhelming power to help humanity, insisting it wasn't too late to switch sides. She reached out her hand, offering to lead him into the outside world with her. Following that day, humanity celebrated as the hero, Yuga, successfully defeated the demon lord. Yuga and his companions were rewarded by the king, who declared a 3-day festival to mark the end of the long war. As for our protagonist, after allowing the demon lord to be killed, Ioki watched over the girl he loved, breaking off his own horns to begin a new life.
As the hero's party made their way through the streets, they were hailed by the cheering citizens. Yuga and his girlfriend thanked Cecilia for buying them the time they needed, and he expressed his relief that she was unharmed, while the mage felt a pang of guilt for suggesting they abandon a comrade. That same day, Ioki, disguised as a human, went to register as an adventurer at the local guild. He approached a bored, yawning receptionist named Graman, who curtly told him to fill out the information himself. Soon after, Ioki was issued an F-rank adventurer card, the lowest rank on a scale that went up to S. Graman, who was annoyed about having to work during the 3-day victory festival, warned him not to lose the card. After completing just a few quests, Ioki had already earned a good amount of money, driven by his desire to rank up quickly and become a man worthy of Cecilia, grinning foolishly at the thought of having her as his wife. About a week later, rumors of a new adventurer ranking up at an incredible pace spread throughout the city. When Ioki returned to the guild for more work, an exasperated Graman asked why he always came to him. Graman was suspicious, questioning how anyone could possibly jump from F rank to D rank in a single week, concluding that Ioki was no ordinary person. Ironically, Ioki felt he was already holding back, but his overwhelming strength made every task trivial. Just then, Cecilia arrived and ordered Graman to cancel all of Ioki's pending quests, revealing that her family managed the guild. She invited him to her home for a private conversation. Upon arriving at her mansion, guards immediately accosted Ioki, who surrendered peacefully. Cecilia scolded them for threatening her friend, a word that sent a sharp pain through Ioki's heart. Inside, she apologized for not contacting him sooner and warned him that the rumors of his rapid advancement were causing a major stir. For his own safety, she urged him to leave the guild, explaining that despite the demon lord's defeat, the threat was far from over, as many demons and monsters had escaped.
More importantly, Cecilia explained that with the demon lord gone, the threat of war between the human nations was now looming as power struggles began to emerge. The hero, Yuga, was receiving numerous marriage proposals from various countries as they used offers of status, money, and political alliances to try and recruit the world's strongest warrior to their side, intending to use him as a tool for war. Ioki's meteoric rise through the adventurer ranks was becoming a serious problem. Soon he would reach S rank and inevitably attract the same unwanted attention. If his demon identity were to be exposed, his new life would be over. Cecilia admitted she wanted to hire him as her personal guard, but couldn't afford the fees of an S-ranked adventurer. Bowing her head, she begged him to leave the guild to maintain peace in the kingdom. Ioki loudly declared that she needn't worry, as he would never accept a recruitment offer from anyone. Even if the most beautiful woman in the world proposed marriage, he would refuse, because in his eyes there was only Cecilia. A smile lit up her face as she realized his heart was still hers, and she withdrew her objection to his adventurer career. Just then, her mother entered the room, apologizing for the guard's audacious behavior. Though Ioki didn't mind, the lady of the house still ordered the head maid, Sophia, to re-educate them. Sophia then asked her mistress how many bones she should break, causing Ioki to nearly choke in shock. The conversation then shifted to the marriage proposals Cecilia had received, including one from the hero Yuga. At the mention of his name, Ioki flew into a rage, but Cecilia quickly calmed him down, assuring him she had already rejected all of them. Her mother, deducing Ioki's feelings, playfully asked if he wanted to marry her daughter. He refused, explaining that he had already been rejected once and wanted to first establish himself as an adventurer before trying to win her love again. His responsible answer pleased her mother, who did not want to see her daughter with an insincere man. Afterwards, the two of them went outside to talk privately and intimately, filling Ioki's heart with joy.
A few days later, while on a monster hunting quest, Ioki came face to face with a massive beast. It lunged at him, but he easily dodged its attacks before felling it with a simple magic spell. Graman had estimated the quest would take a week, but Ioki finished in a matter of hours, pleased that he could sell the creature's meat and fur for a good price. Suddenly, his old demon subordinates, Duke, Happiness, and Sheik, appeared and attacked him. Ioki quickly stopped their assault, and as he revealed his identity, the three were overjoyed to see their captain alive. They questioned where he had been when the Demon Lord was defeated and why he now appeared in human form. Duke, in particular, seemed to have been the most worried. Ioki explained everything that had happened. He confessed his love to the beautiful Cleric in the hero's party, was rejected, and was now living as a human to win her heart. He told them they were now free to live as they pleased, but all three refused. They insisted on remaining by his side, declaring their unwavering loyalty to him as their captain, no matter what form he took, because he had always been a good leader to them.
With no other choice, Ioki agreed, but told them to prepare themselves for what was to come. Soon after, they all returned to Cecilia's mansion, where she immediately scolded Ioki for plucking Happiness clean of her feathers, saying it was a cruel thing to do to a girl, even if she was a demon. Once she learned they were Ioki's trusted subordinates, however, Cecilia welcomed them warmly. After they disguised themselves, they looked completely human. Duke, who could normally detach his head, found it was now stuck to his armor, though he remained the most talkative of the three, a trait he admitted he picked up from Ioki. He confessed that he hadn't liked his captain at first, as Ioki was infamous for being a shut-in who never came out to fight, even ignoring his superiors when they came calling. Eventually, they gave up on him. Unable to accept this attitude, Duke challenged Ioki to a duel and was utterly defeated, after which Ioki gave him a life-changing pep talk that earned his unwavering loyalty. Sheik and Happiness also held their captain in high regard. Realizing the other two were missing, Ioki and Duke went to look for them, finding Sheik being lulled to sleep by Cecilia's mother. Ioki apologized, but the lady of the house insisted she adored children and had taken a liking to the little guy. Cecilia then asked about Happiness and learned she was with Sophia, the head maid, who had taken it upon herself to train the girl as a maid due to her potential. When Cecilia tried to explain that Happiness was a guest, Happiness herself declared that she wanted to stay and work there, an offer Sophia happily accepted. That evening, as Ioki and his two male subordinates were leaving, Cecilia's mother whispered to him, asking him to take her daughter out the next day. The following morning, Cecilia appeared in casual clothes, stunning Ioki with her beauty. She explained the disguise was to avoid being recognized by the public, as being identified as a member of the hero's party would be troublesome. Ioki promised to give her a perfect day off. The pair then enjoyed a cheerful stroll through the town, with Cecilia getting excited over a cake shop filled with delicious sweets and teas. Later, as they admired flowers, Iyoki's heart swelled with joy at the sight of the cute girl he loved. He then took her to try on different outfits, continuing their delightful date. Cecilia thanked Iyoki, saying that being with him made all her worries disappear. When they entered a jewelry shop and Iyoki offered to buy her something, they unexpectedly ran into Yuga and the female mage Mikana. Mikana quickly covered Yuga's mouth to stop him from calling out, afraid of blowing their cover and ruining the outing. Yuga, who was completely infatuated with Cecilia, ignored Iyoki entirely and tried to invite Cecilia to join them, but she politely declined, explaining she was already on a date with her friend. Only then did Yuga notice Iyoki, remarking that he looked familiar before dragging Cecilia into the shop. This infuriated Mikana, who was in love with Yuga, but her feelings were unrequited. She called Iyoki an unlucky-faced commoner and told him to hurry up and win Cecilia's heart so Yuga would finally give up and notice her instead. Refusing to be outdone, Iyoki followed them in, determined to buy Cecilia a gift. He picked out a simple but heartfelt necklace, while Yuga, in a show of bravado, chose the most expensive one in the store. As Yuga tried to put the necklace on Cecilia, he fumbled, dropping his hat and glasses, which instantly revealed their identities. A crowd quickly formed around the three Heroes Party members, forcing them to make a hasty retreat and leaving a bewildered Iyoki behind. While searching for Cecilia, he stumbled upon the fourth member of the Heroes Party, the swordsman Raven, also surrounded by fans. Unlike his fierce demeanor in battle, Raven appeared timid and overwhelmed. Taking pity on him, Iyoki helped him escape the crowd, advising him to wear a disguise next time. As Iyoki turned to leave, Raven shyly called out to him, revealing his insecurity about his childlike voice, which was why he rarely spoke. Being incredibly perceptive, Iyoki reassured him that everyone has things they're sensitive about and that he wouldn't judge. Raven was overjoyed, as most people mocked his voice. Feeling a connection, the red-haired swordsman asked if they could be friends, admitting he was lonely. Surprised but agreeable, Iyoki accepted, figuring it would be good to have a friend while living as a human.
Iyoki then resumed his search for Cecilia, who was also looking for him, worried that he had gone home. Nearby, she found a lost, crying child and comforted him, instantly healing his scraped knee. However, the boy was still distraught over being separated from his mother. His cries attracted Iyoki, who quickly performed some amusing tricks to calm the child down. Seeing that Iyoki hadn't left, Cecilia was moved to tears. As she playfully scolded him, the little boy burst into laughter. They then carried the child on their backs to help him find his mother, with Cecilia refusing Iyoki's concerned suggestion that she go home first. Elsewhere, Yuga was also frantically searching for the cleric, completely ignoring Mikana's pleas to give up and go home. He insisted he was worried about Cecilia before running off again, leaving Mikana behind, heartbroken by his unrequited love. It was only when Yuga found Cecilia that he turned back to call for Mikana, but she was already gone. The next morning, Iyoki went to visit Cecilia and learned she was sick. The accumulated fatigue from her adventures, compounded by the previous day's chaos, had pushed her to her limit. Yuga, the source of the trouble, was already there making a fuss, but Sophia quickly intervened to ensure her mistress could rest. Because she was fond of Iyoki, Cecilia's mother allowed him into her daughter's room to take care of her, a clear sign of her approval. Inside, he found his muse resting in bed and apologized for not realizing how tired she was and dragging her all over town. Cecilia simply replied that it was indeed his fault and that he would have to make it up to her with another outing. Overjoyed at the prospect of a second date, Iyoki let out a happy shout, only to be promptly silenced by Sophia, who reminded him that the patient needed quiet. After being kicked out, Iyoki unexpectedly ran into Raven, and the two began talking about love. Raven confessed he had a crush on a girl who, instead of mocking his voice, had praised it, saying she was envious. Her kindness had warmed his heart and made him fall for her. When he asked Ioki for advice, Ioki encouraged him, telling him he was handsome and should be confident. Bolstered by the encouragement, Raven thanked him and declared he would go confess his feelings. A moment later, Ioki realized with dawning horror that the direction Raven was heading was towards Cecilia's mansion, making him wonder if he had just created a new rival for himself.
Yuki appeared extremely worried, even though he was certain Cecilia would reject Raven. However, he was still scared because they were a team. What if Raven managed to save Cecilia when she was in danger and win her favor? As he was panicking, Raven came out looking dejected. Yuki quickly asked about the situation and learned that he had been rejected. A little later, he returned to the mansion to try and find out who Raven had confessed to. He lied, saying he wanted to see Cecilia, but was turned away by Sophia, who told her that her lady was already asleep and could not be disturbed. This also meant that Raven hadn't met with her earlier. Upon asking around, he discovered that Raven had gone to see Happiness. Realizing that the red-haired swordsman was in love with the harpy, Yuki was a bit shocked. He went to quietly ask Happiness if she had just been confessed to, and she nodded in confirmation. And Happiness's answer was, of course, a rejection. There were many reasons for this, and it wasn't because she disliked the young man. The girl was also quite shy, so she ran off immediately. That night, Yuki returned to discuss his plans with his two subordinates. They talked about the budding romance between Raven and Happiness. Yuki explained that Raven was a member of the heroes' party that he had defeated many times before. Luke argued that their leader shouldn't let a human get close to her, believing that even if she were confessed to, the trauma from her past would just make Happiness afraid. After all, she was exceptionally beautiful, so many had tried to capture her for slavery or hunt her for her valuable wings. However, Jorge countered that Happiness didn't hate humans, as there are many good people among them, like Cecilia's family, for example. Wasn't that the very reason the pink-haired girl asked to stay and work as a maid? Yuki, hearing this, was relieved and told Luke not to worry excessively. The next morning, Yuki went to find his acquaintance at the guild, only to discover he wasn't there. Surprisingly, Kramer turned out to be the vice guildmaster, and Yuki was stunned to hear from the receptionist that the man held such a high position. When he asked where Kramer was, she whispered that it was a matter of dignity and no one else should know. Kramer was currently hospitalized with severe injuries. Yuki later went to visit since they were good friends, and upon seeing Kramer in so much pain, he asked who was responsible. Kramer explained that he had angered his wife and been beaten into this sorry state. It turned out the previous day was their wedding anniversary, but not only did he forget to buy a gift, he was also late for their important dinner, resulting in a near-fatal thrashing from his wife. Yuki had to admit it would be truly embarrassing if that story got out. He learned that Kramer's wife was a former A-rank adventurer, just like him, but he was simply no match for the lioness at home. Yuki offered to use healing magic, but Kramer refused, wanting to stay injured so his wife would come and care for him. Just then, Sophia arrived to check on him, revealing that Kramer's terrifying wife was none other than the head maid herself. The moment he opened his mouth to call her honey, she struck him again. Despite her violent tendencies, it was clear they were deeply in love, a fact that made Yuki incredibly envious. He used the opportunity to ask Sophia about Cecilia's condition, and she reassured him that she was fine, but was out working until the evening, meaning Yuki couldn't see her. Yuki then asked if giving gifts to girls was mandatory, prompting a fierce glare from Sophia, who demanded to know what her husband had said. He quickly backpedaled, explaining that he wanted to buy something for Cecilia and wondered if it would make her happy. Sophia advised that if a gift comes from the heart, her lady would surely appreciate it. Taking her words to heart, Yuki rushed off to buy a present, fantasizing about how wonderful it would be to marry Cecilia one day. He happened to pass by the knight's dormitory and went to find his friend Raven, who was so heartbroken from his rejection that he wouldn't even wake up. Yuki resorted to his ultimate move, calling out Happiness's name, which instantly jolted Raven awake. Ready to help, Yuki asked him to recount the whole story from the beginning. Raven explained that one day while on patrol, he found Happiness surrounded by thugs. He immediately intervened, taking one of them down. The others, recognizing him as a member of the heroes' party, quickly fled. Raven had intended to just walk away after saving her, but Happiness pulled him back to thank him. Unconsciously, he said something that surprised Happiness. Afterward, she complimented his beautiful voice, saying she didn't care about appearances and was even envious of it. Recognizing her familiar maid uniform, Raven sought her out at Cecilia's mansion. Yuki then fabricated his own story with Cecilia, earning Raven's admiration, who thought it was noble to leave one's homeland for the person you love. Seeing Raven feeling hopeless about his own perceived lack of notable qualities, Yuki encouraged him, explaining that Happiness is actually just poor at communication and isn't close to any boys outside of their group. Hearing this, Raven realized his confession might have been too sudden, scaring Happiness and causing her to reject him. Yuki encouraged him, insisting it was far too early to give up. With that, he invited his friend to go gift shopping, hoping it might win back some favor. They went to the same shop as before, and luckily, the bracelet Cecilia had admired was still available. After Yuki made his purchase, Raven was still hesitating. Yuki praised the item Raven was considering, saying it would suit Happiness perfectly, but Raven worried that he'd be rejected again. Yuki repeated Sophia's advice that sincerity is all that matters, which convinced Raven to buy the gift for her. After paying, they ran into the ever-annoying Mikana, who teased the two of them for shopping together. Yuki fell for her taunts and blurted out that he was picking a gift for the one he loves, making her realize he was genuinely in love with the priestess. When she asked who Raven liked, he refused to say. Mikana acknowledged it was her fault, recalling how she'd mocked his voice when they first met. Yuki realized that despite her harsh words, she was capable of admitting when she was wrong. The three of them went elsewhere to talk, where the boys tried to dodge her questions by stuffing their faces with food. However, Mikana cleverly baited Yuki by sharing details about Cecilia, which immediately got him to open up about his own romantic struggles. He confessed that he'd made no real progress and was frustrated that his beloved was constantly receiving marriage proposals, including from Yuga, a fact that also infuriated Mikana. She declared that the hero deserved every rejection, as he was always inappropriately bothering Cecilia, and noted that even she was afraid of getting on Cecilia's bad side. When the conversation turned back to Raven's love life, Yuki defended him. This prompted a frustrated Mikana to confess that she genuinely wanted to help, not cause trouble. Realizing his teammate was in a similar predicament, Raven asked her about it, and she then admitted that Yuga despised her.
Mikana recounted how their party was repeatedly defeated at the Demon Lord's castle. Yuki, of course, already knew this, since he was the one who had bested them, but he feigned ignorance and listened as she continued. Because the hero's party was repeatedly beaten by someone other than the Demon Lord himself, they lied to the public to save face, as being spared and even healed by their enemy was an immense humiliation. Yuga gritted his teeth and endured the shame to continue receiving supplies from the villagers, but after a month of constant losses, those supplies dwindled and suspicion grew. It was then that Yuki offered them a chance to escape by abandoning Cecilia, a decision Mikana tearfully admitted she made and then convinced Yuga to accept, believing it was why he now treated her so coldly. Upon hearing this, Raven surprised the other two by apologizing, confessing he should have spoken up against leaving Cecilia behind. However, the one who felt the most guilt was Yuki himself, for he had caused this deep rift within their party. He asked if they had confessed their feelings to Cecilia, but they hadn't, with Mikana fearing she wouldn't be forgiven. Yuki encouraged her, saying she would be haunted by guilt forever if she didn't, which moved her to tears as she promised to try and apologize. Inspired, Raven also resolved to speak with Happiness again. Upon arriving at the mansion, they found Luke, who would accompany Jorge on a visit to Cecilia's mother. The overprotective Luke immediately forbade Raven from approaching Happiness, but Yuki mediated, explaining that Luke was only acting this way because he had known her the longest. When Luke called Raven a coward for hesitating, Raven finally found his voice. Their argument drew the attention of Jorge and Happiness, who were nearby. Seeing Raven's sincerity, Luke had a change of heart and pushed him toward Happiness, urging him to speak his mind. Raven followed through, offering his gift, but this time asking only to be her friend, an offer which Happiness happily accepted, pleased to have someone new to spend time with.